The Montana wilderness lay wrapped in a quiet so deep, it felt like the mountains themselves were holding their breath. Snow blanketed the peaks and valleys in soft white, each flake tumbling like silver whispers under the faint glow of a muted moon. Daniel Carter, a former Army Ranger with a rugged face and short beard, moved carefully along a narrow trail. Beside him, Shadow, his loyal German shepherd, with a dark brown coat, padded silently, ears swiveling and nose quivering, alert to every shift in the cold wilderness. The wind whispered through the pine trees, carrying with it the faint scent of evergreen and frost. Daniel's boots crunched softly against the snow, a rhythm measured and steady, a patrol of instinct rather than duty. Suddenly, Shadow stiffened, tail dropping, muscles taut, ears rotating like radars, nose pressed into the frozen snow. Daniel froze, whispering, "What is it, boy?" The answer appeared as a small footprint in the fresh snow, fragile and unmistakably a child's. Daniel's heart hammered. A child out here in the wilderness alone? It's impossible, yet undeniable. Shadow let out a low whine, surged forward, nose to the ground, pulling Daniel deeper into the storm. As they moved, snowflakes swirled in the cold wind, layering the forest floor with new powder, making every step a small struggle. Daniel's breath formed clouds in the air, and the dark expanse of the wilderness seemed endless. He reached a small red mitten, half buried in snow. Shadow sniffed it intensely, tail wagging slightly, the certainty in his eyes unmistakable. Daniel picked it up, gripping it firmly, and whispered, "Lead the way." They pressed forward. Snow thickened. Wind shrieked, each step harder than the last. Shadow fought through waist-deep snow without hesitation, loyalty and instinct driving him forward. Daniel shouted encouragement over the wind, but his mind was focused on that fragile footprint, the tiny clue that could mean life or death. Trees loomed like frozen sentinels, their branches heavy with snow. Daniel's gloved hands dug into the powder as he struggled to keep up, every muscle burning against exhaustion. The storm grew more violent, cutting visibility to almost nothing. Suddenly, lunged at the base of a massive pine, digging frantically. Snow sprayed into the air as Daniel's flashlight illuminated the scene. There, partially buried in frost, lay a gray stuffed rabbit with floppy ears, soft and damp. Daniel's heart raced. This was more than a clue. It was a sign that the child was near. He clutched the rabbit tightly, whispering, "Good boy, Shadow. Keep going." Felt like minutes as they struggled through the snow. Daniel's legs burned, lungs heaving, yet he pressed on, following Shadow's unerring lead. Each step brought them closer to a hollow at the base of a large boulder. Shadow crawled in, Daniel following with flashlight in hand, and there she was, a small girl, no older than 6, curled in a ball, pink jacket frosted, lips blue, hands clenched tightly. Daniel dropped beside her, feeling a faint pulse against his fingers. Alive! Relief and urgency crashed together in his chest. Without hesitation, Daniel stripped off his thick winter jacket and wrapped her gently, lifting her against his chest. Shadow pressed close to her legs, warmth from the loyal dog a small comfort against the merciless cold. "You're safe now, sweetheart," Daniel whispered, his voice raw from the freezing wind. Miraculously alive. Miraculously alive. Rescue. This is Carter, female child, approximately 6 years old. Severe hypothermia. Coordinates transmitting. Immediate evac needed. The distant thrum of helicopter blades soon filled the storm. Lights cut through the blizzard, and rescue workers in bright red jackets rushed forward with stretchers. Daniel carefully placed the girl onto one, while Shadow remained alert, ears forward, watching.
Ow.
The helicopter lifted, carrying the fragile bundle of hope away, snow swirling in its wake. Hours later, Daniel sat in a stark hospital waiting room, Shadow curled at his feet, breathing softly, eyes alert. Daniel's exhaustion pressed heavier than the storm itself. "Okay," a doctor approached. Smiling gently, "She's stable. She's alive because of you." Daniel exhaled shakily, relief washing over him. Shadow thumped his tail lightly in acknowledgement. Inside the recovery room, the girl Amelie lay bundled in blankets, clutching the gray stuffed rabbit. Her cheeks glowed, eyes bright as she whispered, "Thank you for finding Bunny." Daniel nodded, his throat tight with emotion. Just then, her mother burst in, tears streaming, gathering Emily in a fierce embrace. Apologies and sobs tumbled from her lips. Daniel watched silently, a deep sense of peace settling over him. Shadow nudged his hand gently. A quiet affirmation of the bond they shared. The storm outside had been merciless, yet inside this room, warmth and hope reigned. Daniel realized the greatest battles are not against armed enemies, but against despair itself, and the most loyal heroes walk on four legs beside us. Emily's small heartbeat, the rabbit, the red mitten, the footprint, a thread of hope that had guided them through the merciless Montana night. Even in a world that can feel cold and overwhelming, stories like Daniel and Shadow's remind us that loyalty, courage, and compassion can pierce the darkest blizzards. Their journey had saved a life and restored a family's joy. The helicopter blades thrashed against the wind, slicing through the thick snowstorm, carrying Emily toward warmth and safety. Daniel and Shadow remained behind for a moment, watching the red lights vanish into the white haze. The storm still howled across the Montana wilderness, but inside Daniel's chest, there was a small flicker of warmth, a quiet satisfaction that their relentless pursuit had not been in vain. Shadow's dark brown coat bristled against the cold wind, yet his posture was calm, proud, and unbroken. Daniel patted him gently, whispering, "We did it, boy. We really did it." Returning to the forest, Daniel took a moment to look at the path they had traveled, the snow heavily marked with footprints, paw prints, and the faint traces of struggle. Each mark told a story of fear, of determination, of hope. His eyes scanned the trees, the boulders, and the swirling flurries, appreciating the dangerous beauty of the Montana wilderness that had both challenged and tested them. Shadow nudged his hand, reminding him that loyalty does not end when the mission is complete. Hours passed as the rescue team secured Emily and transported her to the hospital. The wind gradually died down, leaving a quiet so pure that Daniel could hear the faint crunch of snow under Shadow's paws. They walked back toward their base, the vast wilderness stretching endlessly around them. Daniel's thoughts wandered. He had faced enemies armed with weapons, but nothing had tested his endurance, courage, and compassion like this night. He realized that bravery wasn't just about facing danger for oneself. It was about risking everything to save the vulnerable. Back at the hospital, Daniel and Shadow followed the team into the waiting room. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and the scent of antiseptic mixed with stale coffee. Emily lay on a stretcher, already wrapped in blankets, her cheeks warm now and glowing from the gentle hospital heat. Shadow curled at Daniel's feet, ears alert, eyes tracking every movement in the room. Daniel's exhaustion was immense, but the sight of Emily safe, her small hands clutching the gray stuffed rabbit, filled him with an indescribable sense of relief. Dr. Evans approached, expression a mixture of professionalism and quiet pride. "She's stable now. You saved her life, Sergeant Carter," she said softly. Daniel nodded, unable to form words, his throat tight from emotion. Shadow thumped his tail in acknowledgement, the silent bond between man and dog unbroken and powerful. Emily's mother, Sarah, entered the room moments later, eyes brimming with tears. She gathered her daughter into a protective embrace, whispering apologies and relief in equal measure. Daniel watched, knowing that the true reward of this mission was not recognition, but the reunion of a family and the life they had preserved. As Emily drifted into a calm, restful sleep under the blankets, Daniel and Shadow stepped back, giving mother and daughter space. The room, once tense with fear, now overflowed with warmth and hope. Every detail, the small stuffed rabbit, the red mitten, the footprints in the snow reminded Daniel of the night's journey, the struggle, and the unwavering determination that had guided them through the blizzard. Shadow rested his head against Daniel's leg, a reminder that the most loyal companions are sometimes silent, but their presence speaks volumes. Later, as Daniel stood outside the hospital at dawn, snow still drifting lightly from the clouds, he looked at Shadow, whose dark brown coat glistened with melting frost. The first golden rays of sunlight broke through the lingering fog, illuminating the snow-covered streets. Daniel's breath formed soft clouds, a visible marker of the cold. That still lingered, but inside him, there was warmth that no winter could diminish. Shadow wagged his tail slightly, looking up at him, a silent affirmation that their bond had carried them through the night and would endure beyond it. The Montana wilderness had been merciless, but the human spirit, combined with the loyalty of a faithful dog, had proven stronger. Daniel realized that courage was not always loud. Sometimes it was quiet, steady, and persistent. Compassion could pierce through despair as surely as blades of sunlight cut through storm clouds. Every step of their journey, every decision made in that frozen forest, had led to this moment: a life saved, a family reunited, and a bond reaffirmed. In the days that followed, Daniel and Shadow returned to their routines. Yet the memory of the night lingered like an indelible imprint. Emily's laughter, once a fragile hope, became a vivid reminder of why the mission mattered. Daniel often looked at Shadow, reflecting on how the loyal dog had guided him through the darkness, not just of the wilderness, but of uncertainty, fear, and exhaustion. Together, they had faced the unrelenting storm and emerged victorious. Even now, when snowflakes fall softly on the Montana peaks, Daniel thinks of that night and the invisible threads that connect courage, loyalty, and hope. Shadow sits at his side, ever watchful, ever faithful, a constant reminder that heroism is not measured solely by accolades, but by the lives we touch and the bonds we protect. The memory of Emily, the rabbit, the mitten, and the tiny footprints serve as enduring symbols that even in the harshest conditions, life, hope, and love can prevail. In a world that often seems overwhelming, stories like Daniel and Shadow's stand as a testament to the enduring power of compassion, loyalty, and courage. Through the darkest blizzards, the coldest nights, and the most harrowing trials, they demonstrate that even in silence and snow, the human spirit supported by faithful companions can illuminate the world. Their journey reminds us that bravery manifests in acts of care, that courage can be quiet, and that love and loyalty are forces strong enough to defy even the most merciless storms. For those inspired by this story, for anyone moved by the bond between humans and their canine companions, share this tale, leave your thoughts, and subscribe to Lone Paw Lifeline. Witness how compassion and courage, paired with unwavering loyalty, can create moments of hope that light the darkest corners of our world.